So for the last 20 years, the US has been losing a war it didn't even know it was fighting. In the cyber domain, US adversaries have been able to slowly push the envelope forward and forward, and the US hasn't quite figured out how to respond and certainly hasn't created deterrence in this domain. As a result, it's been open season on US systems. The US has this big disconnect between our offensive capability and our defensive capability. On offense, we're actually among the most talented in the world. At the same time, though, the US is constrained for a very good reason and a very bad reason. The very good reason is that we abide by the rule of law. On the other hand, our defense is very weak. A lot of US defenses have been delegated down to the state level, the local level. That really constrains what we can do offensively because we know if we get on that escalation ladder, we're going to lose. CSIS ran a series of war games. What we found was that even our most talented policymakers are not entirely aware of how to think about fighting in the cyber domain. It took them a long time to really come to a mindset they could use to construct a policy and a response. That can't happen in the event of an actual crisis. We need to be there already. To make this concrete, let's look at what China did with Volt Typhoon. This was an intrusion set where China went and got into some of the most critical infrastructure systems around military bases and on the West Coast. They got into water treatment facilities, they got into electricity facilities, they got into transportation facilities. What that means is that if we were to go to war with China or have a conflict in the Pacific, China would be able to disrupt US activities at home. That means maybe being able to prevent US forces from deploying for 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. In that critical time period, they could position themselves well against, say, Taiwan before we can even get off our shores. The US really needs a new cyber playbook. 3 critical elements of that are going to be mindset, defense as a no-fail mission, and creating the right talent pool. On mindset, we need to break out of the old ways of thinking about proportionality and escalation. Proportionality, a cyber attack for a cyber attack, just isn't going to play to the US strengths. On escalation, we need to no longer be afraid of pushing back against adversaries because we are afraid they're going to win on that escalation ladder. Defense has to be a no-fail mission. We need to implement secure by design. We need to incentivize security in all of our software systems. And talent. The US has fabulous talent in the cyber domain. Most of them are sitting in the private sector. We need to create a cyber force, just like we created a space force, in order to grab that talent, make them a talented reserve cadre that we can call on in the event of a contingency. They can keep working in the private sector, doing their great work there, but then they can come join the fight when they're most needed. The wars of the future are very much going to be fought in the cyber domain first. The US has been losing that war so far. We cannot lose in the future. To read the full playbook, visit csis.org.